Alright, time for another Draft Science video presentation. For how long? Anyway, so I did take yesterday off because nothing really is happening. There's no reasonable counter arguments to counter argue on this subject, and I really don't want to change the subject because this really should be resolvable. This shouldn't be that complicated, right? You have a spring and you compress. You see how much it compresses, when things hit it. Or you launch two things, one twice as heavy as the other with the same spring compression. You see if they go, different distances. Really not that complicated. Somebody should be able to do it like that fast, right? So, but anyway, some of these questions just should be so easily answered, and they're not, and that's really funny. It's funny that there's no video already, as stated. Shouldn't even have to go looking for it. But anyway, so but in other news, I have to, for your information kind of thing, just because the two channels are semi-related. The Amendum channel has gotten another strike, so I won't be able to post videos for 2 weeks, and this is just. Now it's just one strike away from termination. So the little trolleys are, they're winning the battle. They won't win the war, but, they're winning these little battles, these little crappy victories where they get the, they get to run Google, essentially. And, like some old lady back in the 50s, writing letters to CBS and getting shows canceled. It's just so silly. What comes around goes around, or whatever. This whole, the human race just keeps stepping in the same traps over and over and over again because they don't fix anything. They don't figure out that liars suck, and it should be the liars we're terminating. But no, instead, if you honestly speak your mind on the internet, your honest opinions, no, that's not allowed. You can't do that, you silly fuck. Can't say fuck. We're really going back that far. I mean, that'll be the next strike violation. Anyway, it's just so bad. So they took down a video that's got to be 8 years old. It's something about some polka guy, from 1942 on the internet. So who the hell knows? I gotta go find out what, go watch the actual video. Who knows what it's about? Maybe the word Holocaust came up in there somewhere and you're not allowed to talk about that. For whatever reason, yeah, you might tell somebody a truth somewhere, and oh God forbid we have any of that. I mean, it's just so annoying. You just, well, anyway, who knows what my so if they, they clearly looks like the idea is to exterminate the 15-year-old channel, 16 and 17, I don't know, but I mean, I'm gonna love the idea of just thinking about the court case and how Google would explain how, well, yes, you have this reward and punishment policy. We punish people for doing bad things, but we wait 8 years to do it. So somebody post a video when the magical hate speech policy doesn't exist, and 8 years later, when their word policy has changed, you can't say any of these magic words anymore. We give them a strike on their account for a video they did 8 years ago. And they're supposed to go through their thousands of videos, right? It's not just a couple, there's thousands of videos in 15 years. And they're supposed to go through them and figure out what YouTube wouldn't like. And that's not going to be, well, they maybe won't like any of my videos. Because I don't say things like, Google's a great corporation, and I love being part of the corporate whole thing, and I love sales, and I love marketing, and I love commercials, and oh, I love when Google gets richer and richer, and I love those two little rich guys that own the place, and they waste all these billions of dollars on crap and buy their wives genetic engineering businesses so they can take over and be a monopoly. I love that kind of stuff. No, I don't make videos like that. So I guess every one of my videos offends Google, okay, because it doesn't care about anything like free speech or, anything about like humans advancing or any of that kind of shit. It just cares about propaganda that sells ads. Talk more about the quantum stuff because, it sells lots of product. Quantum toilet paper, quantum everything. Yeah, quantum. supercomputers and a quantum computer. Yeah, they even built one of their own little quantum computers. Yeah, talk more about that kind of stuff. I mean, it's so fucking bad. So, and then the other thing of course, if there was a court case, I'd say, well, who complained? Let me see the complaints you got. Who filed them? And it's all going to be one guy with 17,000 stock accounts. The same guy's been harassing me for 5 years or whatever. And that's what it's going to come down to, is this one asshole decides what's on the internet. And that's going to be exposed anyway as a fact. It won't matter, though, because all you people are just slaves to these fucking corporations. Your Facebook, your Twitter, and your fucking Twatter, and all this fucking bullshit, your Thundor, and blah, blah, and blah, blah, blah. It's just disgusting. Ugh. Oh, don't regulate them. Don't force them to comply with our basic civil rights. Fuck. Anyway, so just fair warning. Okay, so I'll have to put the other videos on the Do Not God website, donotgod.com. And realistically, if people can't handle figuring it out, then they're probably not smart enough to do any of this philosophy stuff anyway. Fuck our physics. It's just it's just so annoying. So this would be more of a waste of time, right? If I have to waste my time defending my free speech rights. You can't. It's hard enough composing your speech. Building it over a lifetime, but then you have to waste half your time on the logistics of just having the right to say anything. It's just so bad how we ever got to this stinking lousy point. As a child of the 60s, it's just frightening. It's just stunning. It's not frightening. It's just depressing, that you've evolved into fascist lunatics. Fascism for your lefty stuff and fascism for your righty stuff. Just horrible. Ugh. It's only two boats that float in this corporate arena, That's it. Crazy right and crazy left. I want more. So this guy wrote a ton of stuff, so I want to kind of get to that. There's a lot of different kind of physics in here. So I might as well. It goes sideways right from the beginning. But anyway, it's a nice effort. I mean, it's a huge effort, so I'll try to respect that. Maybe I can make this a little bigger, because I'm going to have to do a lot of reading. Ugh. Alright, so it says K guy, nice person, blah, 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 whatever, badgering me, essentially, though. Like I should do the experiment. So I'll read one of my comments, and that wasn't enough, apparently. Alright, so he's quoting him. Time to get your hands dirty building your own contraptions to really test those claims. So most of the claims I've made theoretically are about how photons function, even single photons. I'm obviously not going to spend $5,000 on some sort of equipment to try to do single photon experiments. I'm not going to build a LHC. Yeah, I'm not going to do the Eddington experiment by sending up my own satellite with a flip cam in it. This is, sorry, but this is garbage, all right, to talk about amateur experimentation. We should be way past any amateurs even being allowed to do experiments, because we know what it leads to. Well, anyway, so I've said, so you think doing contraption experiments is good science? I disagree. The sloppy clay experiments of the 1700s just created false impressions. See, now, Stephen Broad tried to duplicate Madame Chartelet's experiments, and he couldn't do it. Because, it can be engineered to go any way you want. Just mix the clay different. Different clay will give a different bias and create a different result. So there. So anybody can do the experiment with their own set of clay and make all kinds of claims about what the physical truth is. And then we see Ken Wheeler's cheap, cruddy experiments. I put a magnet next to a crayfish. See, it proves crayfish love magnets. I mean, this kind of shit experiment doesn't do the world any good. All right, allow him to defend nonsense claims. The internet is covered with poorly done science experiments. I mean, all the flat earthers, all the conspiracy theorists with their freaking reflected images off the guy's backpack in the moon landing or some other kind of crap. All this UFO crap. Okay. It just is a silly distraction. It doesn't do the world any good. These amateurs playing scientists bullshit. All right. Frankenstein had a laboratory. Even Frankenstein didn't use contraptions. It is the problem, not the solution. I mean, I've already explained. I have no space. I have no equipment, barely. I have the crudest of tools. Yeah, I'm really not the greatest candidate for doing any of these experiments. Besides the fact that I am a little bit busy, actually. I have a whole lot of other things I need to do and I have to work on. Trying to get somebody to talk physics, all this other stuff I have to do. And besides all the other philosophical work I do on the internet. And you want me to waste my time whittling experiments. Fuck. That there's only hundreds of thousands of people better equipped to do. So I shouldn't send, like I did, emails to Applied Science, who has a very nice lab, or the other guy who does, experiments, builds things. I shouldn't send the request to a builder of things. I should do it. I should knit my own shoes. Well, I even come down to saying that, so he keeps badgering me, so I answer again. Okay, as stated, I disagree. Experiments should be done well or not at all. If I'm correct regarding my videos, I have done some exceptional theoretical physics. You're suggesting I should devote a great deal of time to designing experiments that physics should have already done. Let's understand, these are simple experiments that they could do in less than a half an hour with their air tracks. Okay, all these colleges with these, they already have the expensive hardware that, it would take no time at all to do all of the experiments that would really tease out the truth. It would show it. How complicated it is to take a stick of butter and drop it 1 meter on a scale. I don't happen to have a scale, so I'm going to have to build one. But I'll actually do this one. All right, first. But I mean, they have a thing called a joule. The definition of a joule is essentially a stick of butter falling 1 meter. I mean, they call it lifting 1 meter, but lifting and falling are the same thing in gravity, so it doesn't matter. So you drop a stick of butter 1 meter and it impacts a scale. They've never done the experiment, apparently. They've never found out how much a joule weighs. And you're badgering me. And so instead of making a comment about how, gee, science does seem to be full of crap. I mean, they haven't done the simplest experiments. They haven't repeated their most fundamental experiments, like the Eddington experiment. They haven't repeated any of this shit. Even the what's his name? The famous entanglement experiment that they never repeated. All right, and that perhaps hundreds of thousands of other people are better equipped to do. Seems kind of like telling Einstein to knit his own clothes. And so he goes on. He just wouldn't let it go. Fuck. So, well, maybe people have problem, let's see, translating theory into practice, then they need really specific and insultingly easy instructions to follow, or even a cardboard mock-up of the experiment with phrases explained like in kindergarten. What does this have to do with science? I shouldn't have to do that to somebody who has actually watched all the, went to the MIT and actually listened to Professor Lewin. I shouldn't have to do that. He should know all of this stuff already. I don't want to have I'm not talking physics to the public. I don't know whether you get that. But I have no interest in having a conversation with Joe Streetpack or whatever. Okay, some moron walking down the street who doesn't know a shit, who just knows whatever some douchebag on CNN told them about reality. Not interested. I'm interested in a conversation with somebody who knows something about mechanics and physics just from life experience. Either they had a job or they were encountering physics all the time, or they actually studied the subject. I really don't have interest in having a conversation with the public. This isn't for the public. It's for establishing a truth. It's for proving with arguments and evidence. Anyway, in my field of work, there are often workers, well, we don't need all this personal stuff in here. Exceptionally easy for you, but others, including better equipped people who are your targets, might still be left wandering in the dark. I'm just saying, if they're wandering in the dark about any of these questions, after video after video. I mean, how many times I've already played the Professor Lewin video? What, 5 times? I mean, how many times do I have to just sit there and rub it in their face and say, "Do you see the paradox? Do you see the paradox? Do you see the paradox? Do you see the paradox?" I know it might sound dismal, but nowadays attention span, willingness. So again, all this has nothing to do with why physics never repeated the Eddington experiment with comparable or better technology. Why physics, when they had a perfect eclipse over North America, perfect, I mean 12 noon, perfect, great technology, all that kind of stuff, and no professional astronomer did the experiment? 400 times better resolution from space, and they've never even tried the experiment apparently. Those are the questions you should be saying. Why? Yeah, those are really important things. Why haven't they done that? That's really lame. Why haven't they dropped a stick of butter on a scale? What's so tough? I mean, it's spring. You take one of those, that you weigh fish with, and you just extend the bucket. So now you have a whole meter. You can just drop the butter onto the bucket. The spring moves. You take a picture of it. Its maximum deflection, and you'll know exactly what a joule weighs. Why haven't they done that experiment? No, instead of that, this crap that just invites the trolls to chime in. Thank you. I appreciate it. So this is Farley, no doubt. I mean, this is sock account. So let's just say sock account comment number 1. Okay, so you have your theoretical physics, but you don't need to prove it. Of course, I've said overtly I do. The problem is I'm encountering another argument. The counter argument is equally unproven, is the whole argument. They have no evidence. So it's theory against theory until somebody does the experiments. And the obvious point is they've had the theory and the equipment for 300 years. Now, I haven't had that. Okay, I'm one person over a period of 10 years. There are millions of people over a period of 300 years. So I would argue that the burden of doing the experiment was sort of on them. They have a higher burden of proof, I would argue. Okay, prove it with experimental evidence because it's difficult to do it well. No, it's not even, I never even said it was difficult to do. That's the whole point. Is it difficult for Professor Lewin, to try different masses and put two objects on the, put the heavy, get a spring, compress it the same amount, put the light cart on the air track, let it go, okay? Take the twice as heavy one, compress the spring the same amount, let it go. Is that too difficult? No, it's not difficult at all. And the fact that that experiment is not in a YouTube video already is outrageously bizarre. Okay. Yet everyone, when someone makes a whatever counter argument, you only response is, where's your experimental evidence? It's not my only response, which is also stupid. But of course, we're both on the same burden. You're saying I have to produce evidence. I'm saying to counter your evidence. You've produced nothing. I have produced the Lewin experiments. I showed you that, this, no matter how heavy I make one side, the experiment where, it does just keep making the cart heavier and heavier and heavier, and this side just keeps doing the same thing. I already showed that experiment. It's evidence, okay? It creates an impression. Now your obligation is to show the piece of evidence that counters that, and you have provided nothing, zero. So again, another lie by the trolls. Show me the evidence. Yes, so I did show you the evidence. Why do others have to show experimental evidence? Everybody has to show experimental evidence. That's the whole argument. I haven't made any other argument from the very beginning except that argument. Of course, we're all obligated to show evidence, and the evidence can't be tainted like Veritasium's single photon experiment, where he has the amplification turned all the way up. Okay, and why can't others just share their theoretical physics like you? So again, that's not all I did. I've played hundreds of video experiments in these videos. Hundreds of experiments have been played in my videos and been used to prove or explain my argument. So this asshole comment saying I haven't produced any evidence is a lie. Okay, without experimental evidence, because they also can't do it properly. So again, we have evidence of this two-slit pattern. Lots of evidence. Okay, we have certain things we have lots of evidence for. Now, what we don't have is any two-slit experiment with electrons that people keep talking about, because that's a little bit preposterous. Anyway, in the classical definition of the two-slit experiment, that is where you're actually shooting random electrons at slits, that doesn't happen in any of the experiments. If you, for every counter argument, automatic response show the evidence, then anybody can also demand that of you. And again, that's fair, and I have provided evidence. I obviously don't do experiments because obviously I don't have the technology or the equipment to do it. I don't have what's called a lab. So the laboratory experiments have to happen in laboratories by definition. That's the way it should be done. Okay, they should be done right as stated. So you disagree. It's good for everybody, every amateur, to just sit there and pretend they can do these highly experiments that need to be very precise and need to understand the controls involved. So I just used, Stephen Bro's experiments are a perfect example of what happens when amateurs are let loose. All right, he doesn't account for friction. He doesn't account for the fact that gravity moves things at the same speed. He doesn't account for every experiment you can find a flaw in it because it isn't done carefully or thoughtfully. All right, so another asshole, the same troll, no doubt. What's the alternative, ? You appear to have reached an impasse where no scientist is willing to accept your financial incentive to discuss your ideas. Well, that's one way to put it. Yeah, they're cowards. So instead of just saying, gee, it does appear like they're cowards because, yeah, I know they're all money whores. Ken Wheeler doesn't want $2,000? Gee, that doesn't make any sense, does it? No, it doesn't. No YouTuber who does science videos is willing to accept cash to debunk your videos. Yeah, that's right. They're afraid. That's the only reason, right? Because they'll debunk flat earthers all day long. They love cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. They love the cash coming in for doing these stupid flat earth debunkings. Why wouldn't they want the free money of making me a fool, plus they get paid $2,000, plus they get channel views? Oh, gee, why aren't they taking that incentive? Why isn't that incentive working? Oh, it's because they're afraid that maybe I'm not a flat earther. Okay, if you can't get some experimental evidence behind your ideas, so again, they have zero experimental evidence. I'm supposed to produce it. So they don't have to repeat the Eddington experiment. They don't have to drop a stick of butter a meter. They don't have to do a damn thing, and you'll believe their theories. Oh, okay, you'll defend them, even though they have no evidence. They just have to say it. Okay. Then it seems you will be stuck repeating yourself every day on YouTube without progress. Well, every video is progress, in my opinion. The arguments just get better and better. And the compiled evidence of the fact of how desperate and foul you people are just becomes more obvious. I'd rather there was a rational conversation. I'd rather somebody could make a rational on the subject response video, but Piro can't do it, and Bro can't do it, and Mindless Marbles can't do it, and Godfrey, whoever the fuck that is, can't do it, and Farley himself can't do it. So they can't stay on the subject, make a subject about the actual physics to save their life, because they don't have any actual physics to defend. They can't defend the history. They can't, certainly none of them are ever going to give you a resuscitation of the history and how it's so glorious, full of brilliant arguments that were made. The monad soliton argument from Leibniz, the free will and life is got special qualities argument from Madame Chartelet. The magic crystal argument. I mean, they got nothing. Okay, maybe that time could be more productive designing and carrying out experiments. So again, more mush about how, yeah, it's really good to do experiments, cheap and cruddy and shitty. Doing them well, no, we don't need that. I mean, just keep saying, just keep validating my point. I mean, anyone arguing for, you know, not doing it right is, in my opinion, arguing against science, because science needs it done right, needs it done careful and well, because it can be deceptive otherwise. At the very least, I could generate some more recognition for your channel. I don't know how it would generate any recognition for the channel, frankly. I mean, beyond unless we get something, like the Professor Lewin thing. So, I mean, even if I proved Professor Lewin's experiment to be unrepeatable, and really, can I do that? Say if I do a similar experiment, can I really prove his unrepeatable when I don't have an air track and I don't have the exact equipment he has? I can't find out where the defect in his experiment is, because there's only two choices. I mean, either his experiment is crap, he did it badly, or there's free momentum. And there's no such thing as saying more momentum isn't more energy. It just doesn't make any sense. Of course, more momentum is more energy. As you will be doing something new. Yeah, so again, something new that will be just as ignorable as every other thing I've done. So again, I have three subject videos on gravity, photons, and on energy. 15-minute videos, not a single response. I pleaded for the response. I'm willing to pay a channel with some kind of exposure $2,000 just to play a 15-minute video, and no takers. I mean, they don't even have to interact with me. They don't even have to debunk the video. All they do is play it on their channel as a regular video, and no takers. I've done my job. Okay, you people certainly haven't done yours as decent humans anyway. These arguments are shit. Okay, absolute shit. So anyway, fine. I don't, SK guy, I don't, believe what you want to believe. Okay, do whatever you want to do. I think I've made my argument. I disagree. I disagree with you fundamentally on what science is, what physics is. It's not common man bullshit. All right, all of this stuff is a little bit. You have to have, you really do have to have a knowledge base to play this game of chess. All right, chess isn't checkers. Physics is chess. It's more complicated. You have to invest more time to do it. This isn't like do your own whatever, surgery or something. I mean, is that what you want, amateurs to do surgery on people? I mean, what the hell? I'm just saying it doesn't. Your argument doesn't make any logical sense to me. I don't know why you had to pursue it so hard, but whatever. Blah 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 blah. Enough said. I mean, really, it's just I have the simulation to work on. I have so many things to do, and you really want me to sit here and whittle. I have to whittle this piece to be the right size so I can fit it on strings and put weights on it. Yeah, that's what I got to waste my time doing. Nobody else can possibly do it in, 1/100th of the time it's going to take me to do it. Shit. And they have no obligation. Again, I have to do it all. Every single bit of it. They can't do anything. They don't have to justify a single thing they say, and I have to justify everything I say. And those are fair standards. Oh, well, I don't think so. All right. Well, maybe take a little break, and then I'll get into this monstrous comment. All right, should be back. Google is evil. Remind you, yes, evil. Okay, it's not just bad or stupid or smelly. It's evil. Okay. Hello, Gary. Hope you're doing well. Well, I'm endeavoring to persevere. That's all you can do on this shithole. I've been a long time subscriber and I've been doing a lot of thinking based on your 2 plus 2 plus 2 model over the last 8 months. And I think I may have found some things are bringing to your attention. So I don't want to be insulting, but I mean, this whole idea that, oh, you're going to correct me. Oh, okay, thanks. Sorry. You have to come with something more in terms of a little bit of credential to say, do you have a physics degree? Do you have something? Can you actually say that you've watched more physics lectures than I have, or you spent years and years studying dynamics and all that kind of stuff? Or, but you're going to tell me where I'm right and wrong. Oh, okay. All right, I have to ask you to suspend your disbelief for a moment. Whatever that useless crapola. Okay, I don't have any disbelief I need to suspend. I don't have any faith in gods or woo or bullshit. Okay, so I don't need to suspend my brain. I don't need to turn my brain off because my brain's not full of crap in the first place because I cleaned it. As a kid, I made sure crap didn't get in there, so I don't have any crap to sit there and suspend. Same as anyone trying to learn 2 plus 2 plus 2 physics, I suppose. No, it is very different because they really do believe in a religion, okay, and they won't see the universe without the religion in it, the woo. Okay, I'll try to be concise. Well, you try is so nice, but as Yoda would say, you did not do, unfortunately, so the try just doesn't matter because you either do or you do not do, and you didn't do concise too much. Anyway, however, I'm sure you appreciate that it can be difficult to discuss these things in writing. Yes, that's why I would prefer to have a conversation with somebody who can make a video, somebody who knows how to even get their audio working on their computer and can have some sort of interaction, where they play my comments in my video and then respond with something coherent to what I said. Something like that. Please bear with me. I believe you are right about pretty much all of the interactions explained, except all the ones you're going to change. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense what people say. I'm right, you're right, but fundamentally wrong. And here's why. Because I have my own theory. Oh, super. That being said, there's one thing that never set well with me. Well, it looks like there's more than one thing from my cursory reading of your stuff here. Anyway, that is the fact that you need 2 types of energy to explain all phenomena interactions in the universe. Yes, and the conclusion is pretty much well defended in the sense that clearly electrons and protons are different objects. And to make them behave completely inversely to a universe, so I have a circumstance I create, ... And I put an electron in the circumstance, it goes this way. I put a proton in the circumstance, it goes that way. They're exactly opposite reactions to the same environment. And I would argue there is no way to model that without creating 2 inverse forces that cause that effect. And without that, you're never going to explain it because it's impossible to explain without giving the proton and the electron some sort of super intelligence where, somehow they can see something special in the same environment. Anyway, I understand that this is a cornerstone of your model, but please hear me out because I don't think our ideas are in contradiction. Well, I think they will be in direct contradiction. I think there might be an even simpler answer. Well, just get to it. I'll try to make this as logical as I can. Well, okay, you're being very defensive, and I understand that, blah, 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 but this is all a waste of time. Electrons plus protons, without a doubt, are the only 2 fundamental particles in the universe. There, okay. I agree. They're the only matter bits. The elemental matter bits, they're it. A neutron is just a composite of the 2, and atoms are just that. Electrons, protons, and neutrons, which are a composite of electrons and protons. So here, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I mean, you just start with something that, what the hell is this shit? A proton has a mass value of 1. Says, what the fuck is that? Who says that? Where do I find that as a physical theory? And positive charge. We'll get to why all of this in question mark in a moment. An electron has zero mass and negative charge. So the idea of zero mass is retarded in my opinion. The force elements I'm claiming to exist, the bits, have a mass in the sense they have momentum. So this whole for whatever 8 months now, I've been arguing one subject, kinetic energy, and basically trying to point out how momentum runs the universe. Everything is just momentum. That's all there is momentum. All there is mass moving. That's it. There's nothing else happening in the universe. All right. What never made sense to me is that an electron has zero mass. So who says so? They calculate the mass of the electron by, seeing how much energy it takes to push it against a charge, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I don't know if it's a great way to measure mass. I don't know if you can actually measure the mass of electrons and protons realistically, especially protons, because it's really hard to even get a single proton to weigh. Okay? They don't like being weighed. They don't like being alone in the universe and then fall in gravity. They don't really do that, frankly. Okay? It's really hard to get a proton without being influenced by any other electrons or protons, get it far enough away from everything so you can just sit there and put it in gravity and let it fall. That isn't very realistic. Anyway, this just doesn't fit. Well, your premise looks like a huge straw man to me, because fit what? That's nobody's argument. It can't be nothing and have an intrinsic properties, blah, blah, blah. So I don't even know where you heard that electrons don't have a mass. I have no clue where you got that misinformation from. The issue I have is that I don't believe elemental particles are capable of having any intrinsic properties. Well, if it doesn't have an intrinsic property, it doesn't exist. So, these statements, I'm sorry, but that's a ludicrous statement. No intrinsic properties? If it has no intrinsic properties, it's not something. It's nothing. You can't do anything without a property. Fuck. This is part of the reason I don't think quarks are real. Well, whatever. I don't think quarks are real just because you don't see them. Anyway, but that's besides the point. I don't know if it really is, but whatever. Quarks are just an amount of energy. So quarks are just different amounts of push from force bits. Quarks aren't things. They're not objects. That's why they only last for a zillionth of a second, because they're not really a particle. They're a collection of energy, a collection of little bits, a bit of Morse code. Rather, they interact with the environment by simply existing, whatever that could possibly mean. They just exist and interact, but they don't have any properties. Whatever. I'm already losing. I'm losing. I have to admit, I'm losing interests. That just sounds like wooey mush. I think I have a solution for the zero mass, the straw man. You mean you have a solution for the straw man? Well, I'm really interested. Charge problem. The issue is that we are thinking in terms of charge and polarity. Well, that's how you're thinking, as opposed to treating it like a difference in pressure. You can't have a difference in pressure that creates an inverse effect, is the point. If you really do go through all the permutations, sit there and think about it and think about it and think about how the same conditions can create opposite reactions, you'll figure out there's no way it can. Okay. See, I would argue that charge is nothing but a difference in pressure. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that's just mushy Ken Wheeler talk, frankly. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't explain how the pressure is in two different directions. How can the pressure be in two different directions? What's the magic that makes the pressure unpressure to the electron and makes it absolute hard pressure to the proton? How can pressure have both characteristics? How can pressure do either pull or push? I'd argue it's not possible. Abundance versus a deficit. Blah, blah, blah. 1 versus 0. Yes versus no. Something versus nothing. Blah, 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 blah. That was just too mushy for... I can't even describe how mushy that mush is. Instead of positive versus negative charge. Blah, 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 blah. Similar to momentum, weight. Everything is pressure. Yes, everything is pressure, but you have to understand that the only way the pressure could possibly work is that the two electrons and protons have actual different properties. Okay, and their properties is the ability to tell the difference between the two different kinds of force, and to be pushed by one and to be not affected by the other. All right, anyway, the way you describe force-matter interactions, I believe, is spot on. Well, it has nothing to do with what you just said, so I don't think it is. Assuming I understand it correctly. Well, apparently you don't. I agree that the force can only have an effect in the universe by interacting with some kind of physical matter, something with mass. Yes, the force has mass. The force is the asteroids and it hits the planets. Blah, blah, blah. And there's just this little complicated rule by where the red asteroids go right through the Earth and the blue asteroids bounce off. You know, some kind of simple rule like that. This makes the force non-physical in nature. Well, screw that crap. Protons having one mass are like the smallest bits of dust that can be caught in the cosmic world. Well, says you. They're obviously gigantic compared to the force. I mean, they're humongous compared to the force. The bits of the asteroids are tiny. The electrons and protons, which would be like planets and suns, they're really big compared to little asteroids. Now let's imagine a square. Oh, please, no. Or a cube, if you prefer to imagine 3D in volume anyway, filled with the force. I prefer to imagine a fiftagon, whatever those are. You know, five-sided object. Because that is actually, really interesting in terms of you can do some really interesting geometry with fivagons, whatever the hell they're called. Octagon? That should be 6, right? 6. Anyway. So trillions and trillions of little energy bits scattering every which way constantly and seemingly random. Well, it's obviously not random, but anyway, filling up the volume. Now there's a certain pressure inside the volume. So, yeah, you say they're inside of things. I say it doesn't, that's pointless. The idea is that the force bits probably are what the matter bits are made out of. But they're clearly, it's a pattern, and the pattern is durable. So electrons are a durable pattern. And you're just really saying I can put a certain amount of energy in one side, it doesn't destroy the pattern, makes the pattern move. I mean, there's lots of ways that are, but this can only be, it really does need to be drawn out to be explained as a model. Now imagine there's no point in you trying to describe your model this way in words. You have to be able to draw the objects and explain how they're interacting. Simulate them. Now imagine we insert a single proton into the volume because it can interact with the force. It is now suspended in this pressure. Yeah, well, a minute ago you had the pressure inside the protons. Okay, so we have a bunch of little bits of force moving in the universe. Got it. We put a proton in there. Right. Well, then next time put an electron in there and see that you get two different reactions, and that's what you have to explain. Anyway, whatever just using the word pressure isn't going to work. Anyway, whatever the pressure is at its highest, which is to say where the force is most concentrated, pushing towards in all angles. So again, that won't work because an electron is going to run right into that pressure. The proton will run away from it, the electron will run right into it. So you can't just say there's pressure there because the two actions are completely different, is where the proton will end up. So if it hit from every angle equally, so this is already the part, right? Okay, that you put you put two checkers inside a box full of BBs. The two checkers will end up moving into each other. But that's only if the two checkers aren't inverse like electrons and protons. Then it won't work. Anyway, where the pressure is the highest. And now there's even more pressure in the middle of the volume. The proton itself is adding to the pressure. It's adding to the pressure in the sense that it's creating more interactions per unit of time in the volume of space. So matter creates more interactions because it causes reflections. And you could argue are deviations in motion. But the fact is those are interactions. Interactions are what makes energy relevant. If energy isn't interacting, then it isn't doing anything, and it's benign, and it has no meaning. A photon travels billions of light years through space to get here from a star or something. No interactions. It doesn't do any work. It doesn't have any significance until it actually lands somewhere. It has to hit something for it to be relevant. So it's irrelevant for billions and billions and billions of years, and then it's relevant for one tiny millisecond, and that's how it works. So yes, matter makes force relevant. The proton itself is adding to the pressure. The proton itself is pushing back and taking up space. Yes, it's pushing back just as much as the force is pushing into it. This is where its positive charge comes from. So how are you going to explain the negative charge then in the same exact space? Because you won't be able to use the volume of pressure argument anymore. It won't work. The force has less available space and the proton is introduced into the volume. So it is, so the force is more concentrated, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, this is all fine until you get to the electron doing exactly the opposite. So the next step, we introduce a second proton into the volume. Well, you should introduce an electron. I'll get the electrons in a moment. Oh, okay, thank you. Essentially the same thing happens. More pressure. Okay, we already got this part. I mean, I've been through this so many times. They're both reflecting pressure back into the environment. And eventually they find an equilibrium between the two of them and their environment. I don't know. 1 + 1 = 3. I don't know why you'd throw something that silly in here. And this equilibrium thing is another point where I'd say, where would the equilibrium be? Two protons will reflect each other forever. If that's all that's in the universe is two protons, they'll just keep moving apart forever. So there's not going to be any equilibrium. So some might say the protons have a positive charge, but the protons only need to exist. No intrinsic properties required. Oh, fuck that. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just such an obnoxious statement. No intrinsic property required to exist. Yeah, you have to have a property. You have to have properties. It's impossible to be a something and have no properties. That's not possible. Shit. If you were with... No, I'm not with you so far. Thank you for your patience. Well, I haven't been all that patient. Moving on to electrons. No mass, yet negative charge. I don't know where you get this no mass crap from. It's still just such garbage. So we'll just establish that a better description of what we call charge is pressure. Well, whatever. So we know it has zero mass and negative pressure. Well, how does that have negative pressure? What the fuck? If something hits it and... it just says I have negative pressure, so I'll move into it. You know, it punches me in the face and I move towards it. Yeah, sorry, that doesn't make any sense. If you know it has no mass, the logical conclusion would seem to be that, in fact, it isn't something. Yeah, duh. It can't be matter if it has no mass. Yeah, duh. So it can't be a particle, rather, it's a deficit. Whatever. A lack of. A 0 versus a 1, a no to a yes. It's certainly not anything like no and yes. Okay, so anyway, something versus nothing versus something. Again, nothing is a silly word to use. We already called it an electron. It can't possibly. You can't give nothing a name and then say it's nothing. I mean, it's stupid. As soon as you gave it a name, it's a something. I would argue electrons aren't elemental particles at all. Well, go ahead and argue it, and I'll totally laugh at the argument, frankly. Rather, they are deficits in the force. La 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 la. They're antimatter. Blah 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 blah. Whoa 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 whoa. You're talking woo, and I'm not really that interested. So I wish you would take that shit somewhere else, because I couldn't give a fuck about any of this deficit. You know, inverted. They're inverted matter. Alright. Anyway, little lacks of pressure. Blah, 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 blah. Like little bubbles of absolute nothing. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, if you would accept the water analogy for a moment, to be clear, I don't think space is a medium. Well, it's a medium in the sense that it's full of frickin' stuff. Yeah, there's lots of energy in it, flying through it. They're like little pockets of nothing trapped inside the force. Whatever the hell that even means. Inside the force? The force is supposed to be the elemental bit. But whatever. Little deficits in pressure. Again, little bubbles. Blah, 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 blah. So there's a bunch of stuff, these little bits, randomly BBs. And there's some place where there's no BBs. And we call that an electron. No chance. Okay, it doesn't work. Go ahead and make that the opposite of a proton. You won't be able to make that the opposite of a proton. It won't be the opposite. Alright. Think of these bubbles as simply being not water in the analogy as opposed to some form of gas. I believe they are created by large abrupt differences in pressure caused by the force proton interaction. See, the problem is you won't be able to move nothing like you can move a proton. The proton can be moved. You can't move nothing. So yes, you could say that nothing can move towards something. It can create a pull in the sense that it'll absorb your pushing energy without anything happening. But you can never push it. You can't push it with anything. So you can't get the inverse reaction you need. But whatever, what's the point in explaining all this to somebody who's lost in this woo? Anyway, believe they are created by large abrupt differences in pressure caused by the force-proton interaction, blah, blah, blah. So again, I mean, I'll go to all the trouble, years of work here, explaining my theory. You're really not contradicting my theory. You're just speculating about some new thing, and you don't even have, in my opinion, a coherent model of how that creates gravity or how that does any of the other stuff. But anyway, this explains why protons are attached to the electrons and vice versa. It does? Oh, sorry, I missed that part. The difference in the surrounding pressure is pushing them towards each other. I'm just saying, so the nothing, so the pressure pushes on nothing, which in my opinion would just collapse the nothing, frankly. If it got hit by pressure, it would just fill the pressure void. So what keeps the pressure void a pressure void? See, you can't have any reflections off of a nothing, you know, a bubble. The bubble can't have a membrane. It can't be reflective. All right. So it doesn't work. Pressure always wants to travel to where there is less of it. So then it would just consume the electron. That's the whole point. And it doesn't want to do anything. Let's understand. It doesn't have any choice but to be diluted or to be compressed. You either get crowded or you get into open space. You either widen, you know, increase the density, decrease the density. These are the more scientific ways of saying it. So systems tend to go less dense if given the freedom to be less dense. Anyway, so when there's a little pocket of absolute nothing, everything will move in that direction. Well, when it gets to that place, then it's going to fill it and it's going to disappear and there won't be any void anymore. So anyway, it doesn't work. I believe it could also explain neutrons. I don't think so. If we imagine the electron as a bubble of nothing, so why would I even attempt to imagine a bubble of nothing? I mean, why do you think? I think Gary will get that. When I made so many videos, just nothing. What are you talking about? Bent space. The volume. We try to force the packet of nothing into something, which is to say they try to push an electron into the proton and the result is the opposite, something Blah, 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 blah. I'm really just losing interest. The result is the proton, the pressure is trapped inside the bubble, and the bubble in turn is trapped. The proton's not going to get. You're not going to trap a dense thing inside an undense thing. They're going to blend their densities. Now you're left with 0, 1 mass objects. So this whole bad theory about what you call a mass. If we can keep using pressurized water analogy for a moment, why? Because you're not dealing with water on an elemental level, the molecular level. All right. It turns creating these deficits, these bubbles, okay, whatever, which aren't things at all. They are the exact opposite. So you're just creating an ether theory now, to say you have maintainable bubbles. Okay, we know that the bubbles inside of water are created by a molecular process where the gases separate from, the water molecules separate into hydrogen and oxygen, and the gases end up creating a less dense something, not a nothing. The bubbles aren't nothing. Okay, which aren't things at all. They are the exact opposite, blah, 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 blah. I mean, ironically, the gas molecules are actually more dense. The water molecule it takes up a bigger volume of space, but has actually less material object in it, per square inch or whatever, the size, its volume. So the density of the gas is actually heavier than the density of the water molecule if you're actually to say how much matter per square inch do they both have. Let me think through that first. Oh wait, never mind. Let's not even get into that. yeah, that's just, the point is a part of what creating energy from the reaction between hydrogen and oxygen is the fact that in creating water molecules, you are expanding, not contracting, the spatial relationship. And that's why you can derive energy from something, is because you expand the space it takes up, which means it pushes on every other molecule in the environment. And that's what creates the energy of an explosion, is in fact the matter itself is essentially exploding. Two things this size expand into something this size. All right, from a more philosophical point of view, it makes sense to me. Well, who cares? That the two elements of things in the universe are something, nothing, and in their environment. Nah, I missed that. 1 + 1 = 3. That makes sense to you? Fuck you. You're insane. I don't know if you have any interest in these subjects. No, I don't have any interest in some other dopey theory. I'm working on my own, thank you. But it all fits nicely with the harmonic principles as well as the Tao. Oh, isn't that just so fucking special? Why didn't you say that right from the beginning so I knew you were just a fucking religious kook trying to turn physics into some sort of religion? Ooh, disgusting. Yuck, puke. As for magnets, just to touch on them briefly, if you imagine that the atom and aligned in a specific pattern can form a sort of funnel of force, well, it isn't doing any of that. It's just radiating energy. And the fact is, electrons and protons can detect the differences in the energy being radiated, and the radiation is just a reflection of the environment it lives in. Stuff is constantly hitting it, gravity, and it's being reflected, and it reflects it differently on the north end than the south end. The pattern is inverted on the two. And because the pattern of reflection is inverted, that's why another magnet can detect it. And that's it. Okay? It doesn't make energy. It doesn't make more force. It doesn't funnel any forces. None of that fucking takes place. It always excretes, all matter excretes a reflection. It's just that magnets excrete a reflection that is all blue on one end and all red on the other end. Well, not all. It has a red-blue pattern coming from one end and a blue-red pattern coming from the other end. Alright, as for electric current, the electrons' bubbles are forced through the matter by the current. Forced how? The bubbles bang into each other and reflect. So again, this doesn't make any sense. Oh, bubble plus bubble equals reflection. No, I don't think so. Anyway, I hope you get the idea. Now, I got it. It sucks. Sorry, but try somebody else. See if they're more receptive. I don't need this. You didn't critique anything I said. You didn't demonstrate how anything I said is wrong. You just said you want to believe in the Tao-ness, and the Yang Yin, and the whatever, the Confucius theory of physics. I truly hope you can entertain these ideas, as I think there might be something here. Well, you can think it, but I don't think so. I've already been through all this crap. I'm just telling you, in the 10 years I've drawn millions of pictures of how it could work, all kinds of stuff moving, all kinds of swirly shit, all kinds of everything. And none of it worked till I found the 2 plus 2 thing. That works. That does it all. Thank you for your time and patience. No. Let me know if you are interested in discussing, exploring these ideas further. I'm really just interested in arguing, points. So you say electrons have zero mass. I say, where's your evidence for that? So let's just start with simple principles. If you're going to argue some elemental thing is true, then you should be able to say, well, here's the compiled evidence and reasoning that gets me to that point. So show me how your interpretation of the physical evidence that exists, you come to the conclusion that electrons have zero mass, because that's not a conventional theory and it's not my theory. So I don't know whose theory it is, and I don't know what evidence it's based on, but I don't think it's based on anything called evidence. Sorry. Alright, so look, I think it was fair of me to read the comment, and I just disagree, and I think I explained why I disagree, and that's all I can do. I don't think I was excessively rude. And beyond, look, the point is, I've always pointed out, this is draft physics. I'm arguing that conventional physics has screwed up tremendously. Lots of mistakes, lots of plus and minus type mistakes, where they just label things wrong, and, kinetic energy, for example, just complete made up bullshit. Religious theory to start, clearly, badly motivated and really horribly scientifically verified. Really horrible history. And these are arguments to be made that this conventional theory is wooey bullshit, and that if you do think about it a little bit, you can come up with real mechanical models that work. You don't need a woo-averse. It doesn't have to be woo. It doesn't have to have anything magical in it. It doesn't have to have anything with any complex functions. It can be understood as just momentum. Little bits of momentum. Anyway, so till the next time and such, I don't know what to say. Google sucks. Censorship bad. World go to hell thing. Just people are incapable of defending any decency principles on this planet right now. Both sides just want to take advantage of cheating wherever they can, and nobody cares about the elemental structure having any integrity at all, and it's just really sad. But that's the world we live in, so I just have to endeavor to persevere in it, and just say fuck you a lot, I guess, because you all deserve it, and you suck, and there's not much I can say. If it was just 7 billion me's on planet Earth, or 8 billion, this place would be working so much better. It'd be so cool to be on Earth. Anyway, we wouldn't stay very long, though. It's just, life is something you do on vacation. You don't do it on purpose. You don't do it with a purpose. Anyway, what button do I want to hit? I want to hit this one. This has been a Draft Science video presentation. It would be nice if somebody could possibly respond in some sort of coherent and responsibly adult manner, but the baby net, the trivial adolescent net, just doesn't provide any of those options. Because the internet also sucks. Because Google fucked it and gave it herpes and all kinds of other diseases. Because Google is just the scurviest, disgusting thing ever invented by mankind. It is such a disgusting pile of shit. Ooh. Ew, should be a law against it.